We have just under 8 weeks until NFL Week 1 kicks off, and it's going to be remarkable. Obviously, I feel like everyone is just ready for football season. There's such a long off season, but for me, it's my favorite time of the year. Let's do some record predictions. The schedule released a couple months ago, and I kind of went through every one, and we're going to go through each division. Today, the AFC East. And this is a pretty self-explanatory division. We're going to go 4-1 in terms of leading up to who is first in the division, and I think it's pretty, like I said, interesting. Dolphins at the 4th spot. I mean, they lost everything, right? They lost their head coach and Mike McDaniel. They brought in Jeff Hafley, who I think could do a good job. I would be surprised if the Dolphins defense was anything of top 25. No offense. I mean, even with Hafley, as great as he was in Green Bay, they do not have the playmakers on defense to make any crazy big plays. So realistically, they're not going to win a lot of games. Tua's gone. Jalen Waddle's traded him. Tyreek is a free agent, crazy knee injury. They really only have Devon Achane. And if we look at their depth chart, we could look at it right now, actually. Dolphins, Malik Willis, Devon Achane. Malik Washington, Jalen Tolbert, Tutu Atwell. That is a tough receiving core. And they're just rebuilding. I mean, there's really no real reason why this team is going to be competitive. It's just the truth. So I give them their first win against the Jets. Maybe they split against the Patriots. Maybe they split against the Bills. But those are two top-level teams. The only real other wins they can have, Raiders, I could see that being 3 wins. I don't see much more than that. Maybe they beat the Colts. 3 is max. I'll give this team maybe 4 if you beat the Jets twice, but I don't think the Jets and the Dolphins are going to be that far off in terms of what they are, but it's the Dolphins 2-15. I gave them a win against the Chargers later, which, again, it's a weird game. Maybe Malik Willis has a nice revenge game against his old team and the Packers, but again, not more than 3 or 4 wins. Dolphins are going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and they're going to likely get the first overall pick. Unfortunate, but that's just kind of how it's going to go, right? I was a little interested to see why they signed Malik Willis. Maybe he flourishes into a QB1, but he only seems like a bridge quarterback at that point. Why not put Quinn Ewers in for the starting role? It's definitely pretty interesting in terms of how this team is operating. But defensively, Chop Robinson, they did draft Jacob Rodriguez. Interested to see what he does from Texas Tech. But there's no real playmakers. I mean, they got Storm Duck starting, Marco Wilson, Zane Anderson. I mean, it's just a bunch of middle of the pack. They just drafted Chris Johnson. Willie Gay's been there. Jordan Brooks is pretty nice. But this team, again, probably shouldn't win 4 games. If they're lucky, they can maybe win 4. But that's really max. Next team up, the New York Jets. Now, the Jets I actually think could be maybe a 5 to 6 win team. But we'll get to the record in a second. But for me, last year's team was bad. Clearly, Aaron Glenn arguably could have been fired in year 1. They bring in Geno Smith, veteran, bridge quarterback, sure. Breece Hall, they just gave a nice extension to. Garrett Wilson, as well as they traded for Donnie Mitchell last year on the Sauce Gardner trade. Get Omar Cooper Jr. and draft Kenyon Sadiq this year with the Colts pick. Not a bad roster in terms of offensive weapons. You got a veteran quarterback in Geno Smith who, he's not great, but he could still do his job, especially with 3 good receivers and a tight end who's young and a very good explosive athlete. The O-line, solid. There's not really any crazy major holes on that. The big thing I want to see is the defense step up, right? We saw this team last year for the first time. I've never really seen this happen, but 17 games, 0 interceptions. I mean, that is difficult to do. So the defense has to be a lot better. And David Bailey in the draft, maybe that changed a lot of things. A lot of people were a little bit like, Bailey might not be the guy. I would go after the guy from Ohio State that went to the Giants. But overall, it's not a bad team. The defense can still obviously improve. They brought in Minkah Fitzpatrick, drafted D'Angelo Pond in the 2nd round, who I was a big fan of. It's really a matter of, can this defense improve under Aaron Glenn? So I don't want to say it's a hot seat year for Glenn, but they're likely not going to win more than 6 games, and that's going to be the season. As far as the record for the New York Jets, I have them at 3-15. Or 3, where are we at with the Jets here? 3-14 for the Jets. I tried to give them a couple games. Titans arguably could be a win. Maybe they split with the Patriots. I just don't see where I'm giving this team a lot of breathing room. Like, I'll be honest. Raiders, maybe they beat them. I gave them a win against the Cardinals. Like, for me, the Cardinals, Jets, Dolphins, it was so hard for me to find wins for, and I really didn't know what to do in terms of what games to give them. So maybe they win 5. They beat the Titans and the Raiders for 5 games. But like the likelihood they beat a team like the Packers, Lions, Bears, Vikings, Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, those are really, really tough games. So I think 3 is a fair assessment. I don't want to be too over the top, but the Jets, they still have a lot to prove. And yeah, their offense might be a little bit improved, but that doesn't mean all of a sudden they're going to win like 5 games, 7 games, 10 games. I was thinking like maybe Geno can be like the Ryan Fitzpatrick, a decade ago when he led them to the playoffs. I don't even think he led them to the playoffs, but it was like a winning record with Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, and we just saw Fitzmagic go off, and it was this crazy run. And he was just playing for fun. So that's kind of the Jets I want to get back to, and I think Geno is a good stepping stone. They know they don't have a franchise quarterback yet, but why not get a bridge quarterback and actually try and play some meaningful football? Moving on to the New England Patriots, you have the Dolphins at the 4th seed, or the 4th place in the AFC East. Jets at 3rd place. Patriots will finish 2nd. They just won the division with not an easier schedule, but it was easier considering they finished last the year before, 1st this year. They're going to have some tougher competition. But they did bring in some great players. A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs to replace Stephon Diggs. This is a good team. Don't get me wrong at all. But at the same time, I'm looking at it, I'm like, can they win 12, 13 games and, battle the Bills out again? I think the Bills kind of want revenge after last year. They just lost the division, barely snuck in the wild card, got first rounded by Denver. So, it's going to be a close competition between between the Patriots and the Bills. Drake May in his 3rd season, he's been an absolute monster. Stevenson and Henderson, great 1-2 punch there. Arguably, the receiving core got better. You have a lot of depth with Demario Douglas, Mac Hollins, Kyle Williams. And then the defense is just as good. They did lose their kind of pass rusher and Kayvon Chason. So, again, I feel like Mike Vrabel's going to find anybody and fit the system, fit the mold. He knows how to coach guys. He knows how to put guys in the right situations to succeed. So I'm not worried about the defense. I just feel like there might be some tougher competition for this team. And this is a team we can actually go through the schedule. Week 1 against Seattle. Revenge over the Super Bowl champions? I don't think so. Wednesday Night Football, that's going to be an interesting one. Steelers, week 2. Last year they lost to the Steelers, so maybe this year they get their revenge. And talking about the playoffs, if the Patriots do not win the division, they're going to be battling for a playoff spot. So let me know if you want to see some playoff predictions, because the Patriots would be close on the brink of that 7th seed. Tiebreaker against Pittsburgh is huge. Jacksonville is also going to be in the mix because I think Houston wins that division. We'll get to that later. But Jacksonville's a tough opponent. I think the Patriots are going to have a tough time against Jacksonville. Buffalo, they'll split. The Raiders, Jets, those are both nice wins. You get the Bears. I don't know. Thursday Night Football, the Patriots were decent in prime time last year, but I feel like considering that one's at Soldier Field, and then I'll give them, a nice 3-game win streak for the bye. You either beat the Bears, you lose to the Lions, or you lose to the Bears, beat the Lions. So I'm just kind of playing it by how many games can I see them winning? Yeah, I could see 11, I could see 9, but I think 10's a nice little sweet spot for this team. Chargers after the bye had to give 1 loss, and in this 3-game stretch here, I think they lose 1. You lose to the Chargers, okay. You beat the Bills and the Vikings. That's a tough 3-game stretch. So you're either going to beat the Chargers and the Bills, lose to the Vikings and the Chiefs. Like, this is a tough schedule. So maybe you beat the Broncos week 17. I was kind of arguing, do I give them 11 wins? And I could see, the Bills and Patriots both tied at 11 wins for the AFC East. That's a very possible outcome. But you're going to sweep the Dolphins and the Jets, and that's kind of where you're already 4-0 on the season, 5-0 with Vegas, 6-0 with the Patriots, and you're going to have some tough opponents. Buffalo twice, Jacksonville, Chicago, Seattle, Detroit, Minnesota, even the Chargers. I'm not high on this year, but that's still a good team. So realistically, it's a matter of how can this play out. So honestly, now I'm thinking about it, they probably will win this game against the Chargers, but they'll probably lose against the Vikings or something. So I don't know why I picked those. I will say I went back and forth on like just alternating records for like the longest time, but that's the Patriots. So let's go ahead and switch over to the Buffalo Bills as the last team and the winner of this AFC East. I just really don't see the Bills not bouncing back after last year. Not that last year they had a bad year. The Patriots were just that much better. And Josh Allen, you now get a new head coach in Joe Brady. Fire Sean McDermott. Little controversial, but hey, it happens. DJ Moore is now your wide receiver 1. You go ahead and trade for him. Khalil Shakir, Joshua Palmer. You got some decent depth. You drafted Skylar Bell. I like what this team is doing. O-line, they might have lost interior offensive linemen in David Edwards, but again, they brought back Connor McGovern. This is still a pretty solid O-line. I'm not too worried about it. The defense was the biggest problem for this team last year when they were in the playoffs, and again, against Jacksonville, they arguably shouldn't have made it out of the first round, considering, the Jaguars just kept it on the ground. The Bills couldn't stop the run. And Oliver was out. There's a lot of injuries, and now the secondary is going to be interesting. So you got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Cole Bishop, Geno Stone, Christian Benford. So again, for what Leslie Frazier likes to run, in terms of a zone coverage, kind of cover 2, Tampa 2 defense, and I actually misspoke. I don't know why I said Leslie Frazier, but Dean Leonhard is, I think, how you pronounce that. So I'll be interested to see how that scheme works. Maybe some blitz. I don't know. We'll definitely see a new Bills defense, but it's still a lot of the same players. So I still think the Bills defense is good enough for them to win a decent amount of games. On paper, the Patriots roster is probably better, but let's go ahead and go through the Buffalo Bills record, because this is going to be tough. 11-6, just ahead of the Patriots. They beat the Texans week 1. One of those 2 games they're going to lose. It's tough to lose a season opener to the Lions, but you're either going to beat the Texans, lose to the Lions. I just don't see them going 2-0 or 0-2. 1-1 split there. Chargers at home, Patriots at home. Then you get the Rams, tough loss. Raiders before the bye, you go into the bye. Ravens after the bye. Ravens, I think, is going to be one of the best teams in the AFC, so that's a good win there. And you could swap it. Loss out of the bye, beat the Vikings. I don't care. You beat the Ravens, you lose to the Vikings. Same difference. So let me go ahead and switch this. I just realized that it's a little bit off center. Jets, Dolphins, Chiefs. Chiefs is a tough one, but they're at home. Thursday Night Football. Normally, the Bills have had decent success against the Chiefs in the regular season, just not really in the postseason, which is interesting. Patriots, you'll end up splitting. Packers, Bears, Broncos, that's a tough 3-game skid. I have them going 1-2 in that span. But still, I mean, you can easily win any of those games against the Vikings, Bears, Broncos, Lions. A lot of those can go the other way, too. You play the Ravens, Chargers, Texans have all gave wins, too, even the Chiefs. So I think it's an even mix of solid. So for the AFC East, here's the standings. I don't want to give too much away considering we're going division by division, but the AFC East, Bills on top 11-6, Patriots 10-7, Jets 3-14, and the Dolphins at 2-15. I don't think there's going to be any crazy big winning teams in the AFC. Maybe the Bills win 12 or 13, but I don't think it's going to be like that last year to where the Bills are like 12 and the Patriots are like 14, and it's going to be closer this year. It's going to be one game apart. Whether the Bills win 12, Patriots win 11, it's going to be right around there. So that is the AFC East predictions for the 2026 season. 2025 Patriots win it. 2026 now it's the Bills on top. Thank you all for listening, and check out the AFC North coming up next.